Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The sound of my wife's laughter drifting through the kitchen window at 2 in the morning wasn't what you'd call a good sign. I was hunched over the engine of my beat-up Ford in the driveway, grease under my fingernails, when I heard Elena's voice mix with our daughter Katie's in what sounded like a heated argument. "He's completely useless, Katie. Victor gives me everything your father never could." I froze, wrench in hand. Victor? Who the hell was Victor? "Mom, he's still my dad." Katie's voice cracked through the night air. "Your father is a washed-up ex-cop who can barely keep the lights on. Victor has connections, real money, a future." Nice to know the trash takes itself out, I thought bitterly. Pity it's still living in my house. My name is Jack Sullivan, and I used to be somebody. 10 years on the Boston PD before a bullet in the shoulder and a department shakeup pushed me into private investigation work. Not exactly the glamorous life Elena had signed up for when we married 15 years ago. Back then, she was a struggling law student, and I was her hero in blue. Now she's a successful attorney, and I'm the guy who takes pictures of cheating spouses for grocery money. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wiped my hands on an old rag and crept closer to the house. Through the kitchen window, I could see Elena pacing, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the light. She was still beautiful at 42, maybe more so now that success had given her confidence. Too bad it had also given her contempt for the man who'd supported her through law school. "Victor understands what I need," she continued. "He respects my ambitions. Your father just exists." Katie, 17 and fierce like her mother used to be, slammed her hand on the counter. "So you're just going to throw away our family?" "I'm going to build a better one." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd suspected something was off for months. The late nights, the new clothes, the way she flinched when I touched her. But hearing it confirmed in her own voice was like watching a slow-motion car crash. I backed away from the window and returned to my car, but I couldn't focus on the engine anymore. My hands were shaking, and it wasn't from the cold October air. 3 days later, the divorce papers arrived. I was in my cramped one-bedroom apartment. Elena had gotten the house in the initial separation when the courier knocked. The papers were thick, official, and devastating. Elena was seeking full custody of Katie, half my pension, and alimony. Her lawyer was listed as Svetlana Kozlov, her best friend since law school. Of course it was. I called my bank to check my account balance before meeting with a lawyer. The automated voice informed me that my account had been frozen pending legal proceedings. Elena had moved fast and hit hard. I had about $60 in cash and a car that might not start tomorrow. My phone buzzed with a text from Katie. "Dad, I'm sorry. Mom says I can't see you until the court stuff is settled." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "I love you, kiddo. This isn't your fault." But it was someone's fault, and I intended to find out exactly whose. That evening, I drove to Leo's gym on the south side. Leo Martinez had been my partner back in the day, before a career-ending knee injury pushed him into retirement. Now he ran a boxing gym that served as an unofficial community center for guys like us. Ex-cops, ex-military, ex-everything who needed a place to belong. "You look like hell," Leo said when I walked in. He was training a kid on the heavy bag, calling out combinations. "Let me guess, Elena? She's leaving me for some guy named Victor, Russian, apparently, has money." Leo whistled low. "Russians with money in this city usually means one thing." "Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out." "What are you going to do?" I watched the kid throw punches at the bag, each impact reverberating through the gym. "I'm going to find out who this Victor really is, and then I'm going to make them both regret underestimating me." Leo grinned. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Now that sounds like the Jack Sullivan the first used to know. The next morning, I started my investigation the old-fashioned way. I parked outside Elena's law firm and waited. Surveillance is 90% boredom and 10% adrenaline, but I'd always been good at it. Patient, methodical. Elena emerged at lunch with Svetlana. They were laughing about something, probably my financial situation. I followed them to an upscale restaurant downtown, staying far enough back to avoid detection. Through the window, I watched them toast with champagne, celebrating, no doubt. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stay away from Elena or you'll regret it, miss." Victor had made his first mistake. He'd made it personal. That night, I called in a favor for my old partner Danny, who still worked downtown. "I need you to run a name for me. Victor, Russian guy, probably has money, definitely has an attitude." "Jack, you know I can't." "Danny, my wife is leaving me for this guy and trying to take my kid. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. Just tell me if he's got a record. A long pause. Give me 24 hours. While I waited, I decided to do some field work. Elena's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had always been friendly to me. She was also the biggest gossip on the block, which made her a valuable intelligence asset. "Oh, Jack," she said when I knocked on her door. "I'm so sorry about you and Elena." "Thanks, Mrs. Patterson. I was wondering, have you noticed anyone new coming around the house lately?" Her eyes lit up. This was exactly the kind of conversation she lived for. "Well, there have been some interesting visitors. Expensive cars, foreign license plates. And the music. They play this Russian music very loud sometimes." "Russian music?" "Oh, yes. And the man, tall, dark hair, very handsome but something cold about his eyes. He comes by at least 3 times a week, always brings flowers or gifts. Have you seen him during the day?" "Sometimes. He drives a black Mercedes, very expensive looking. And Jack," she leaned closer conspiratorially, "I think he might be married. I saw a woman's wedding ring on the dashboard once when he was parked outside." "Interesting." Victor was keeping secrets from Elena too. Danny called me the next evening. "Your boy Viktor Kozlov has quite the interesting background. Born in Moscow, came here 15 years ago. Officially, he owns a car dealership in Brookline. Unofficially, he's been suspected of money laundering, racketeering, and human trafficking. No convictions, but he's been questioned multiple times." "Human trafficking?" "Yeah, the kind of guy who makes his money off other people's misery. Jack, if your wife is mixed up with this guy, she has no idea what she's gotten into. Maybe, or maybe she knows exactly what she's doing." That possibility kept me awake all night. The next morning brought a new humiliation. I arrived at my office to find an eviction notice taped to the door. Elena had somehow convinced my landlord that I was a security risk. My PI license was also under review following an anonymous complaint about my professional conduct. She was trying to destroy me systematically. I called Leo. "I need to borrow your car tonight. What are you planning?" "I'm going to find out where Victor spends his evenings." "Jack, be careful. These Russian guys don't play games." "Neither do I." That evening, I parked Leo's beat-up Chevy across from Victor's car dealership. The place looked legitimate enough. Shiny cars, professional signage, well-dressed salespeople. But I'd learned long ago that the best criminals hide behind the most respectable facades. Around 9 p.m., a black Mercedes pulled up. Victor stepped out, and I got my first good look at him. He was everything Elena had probably found attractive. Tall, well-dressed, confident in the way that money provides. He moved like a man who'd never been told no. I followed him through the city to a nightclub in the North End called Red Square. The name wasn't subtle, but then again, neither was the clientele. Expensive cars lined the street, and the bouncer looked like he bench-pressed small cars for fun. Getting inside would require creativity. I circled the block and found the service entrance. A delivery truck was unloading cases of vodka, and the back door was propped open. I waited until the delivery guys went inside, then slipped through the door into a storage room. The club was exactly what I'd expected. Dark, loud, and dripping with new money. Russian pop music pounded from hidden speakers, while men in expensive suits drank premium vodka and talked business in hushed tones. The women were young, beautiful, and looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I found Victor at a corner table with 3 other men. They were deep in conversation, occasionally glancing around to make sure they weren't being overheard. I couldn't get close enough to hear specifics, but their body language suggested they weren't discussing car sales. Then I saw Elena. She emerged from the bathroom wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Black, expensive, and cut to attract attention. She slid into the booth next to Victor, who immediately put his arm around her possessively. She was laughing at something he said, playing with his tie, completely comfortable in this world of dangerous men and dirty money. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Victor leaned over and whispered something in Elena's ear. She giggled and kissed his neck. Then he handed her an envelope, thick with what looked like cash. She tucked it into her purse without counting it. So much for not knowing what she was getting into. I was so focused on getting pictures that I didn't notice the bouncer approaching until he grabbed my shoulder. "Hey, no phones in here." "Sorry, just texting my wife," I said, trying to play it casual. "Give me the phone." "Look, I don't want any trouble." He grabbed for the phone, but I was faster. I shoved him back and bolted for the kitchen. Behind me, I heard shouting in Russian and the sound of chairs scraping as Victor's table erupted in activity. I burst through the kitchen doors, scattering surprised cooks and waiters. The service exit was 20 feet away, but two more bouncers were already moving to cut me off. I grabbed a tray of dirty dishes and hurled it at the first one, buying myself enough time to reach the door. I hit the alley running and didn't stop until I reached Leo's car 6 blocks away. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the photos on my phone. I had clear shots of Elena and Victor together, the money exchange, and several pictures of Victor's associates. More importantly, I had proof that Elena was knowingly involved with whatever Victor was really doing. The next morning, I printed the best photos and drove to Victor's car dealership. His Mercedes was parked in its usual spot, gleaming in the morning sun. I smashed both headlights with a tire iron, then taped one of the photos to his windshield with a note. "Smile for the camera, asshole. Nicht, Jack." It felt good to finally hit back. But Victor's response came faster than I expected. That afternoon, Katie called me crying. "Dad, someone came to school asking questions about you. They said you were dangerous, that I should be careful around you. Mom says it's true, that you've been stalking her and making threats." "Katie, that's not. Are you following Mom, Dad?" I couldn't lie to her. "I'm trying to protect our family. By taking pictures of Mom with her boyfriend?" "Dad, that's creepy." The line went dead. An hour later, Elena called. "Jack, you need to stop this insanity. Victor has friends who don't appreciate being photographed. Your boyfriend is a criminal, Elena. He's a successful businessman who treats me with respect, something you never learned how to do. He's involved in human trafficking. You're delusional, and if you come near me or Victor again, I'll have you arrested for stalking." She hung up. That evening, I sat in my empty apartment staring at the photos spread across my kitchen table. Elena looked happy in every single one. Genuinely, radiantly happy, in a way she hadn't been with me in years. Maybe she deserved better than me, but she didn't deserve Victor. I called Leo. "I need your help with something." "What kind of help?" "The kind that might get us in trouble." "I'm listening." "Victor's got some kind of operation running out of that club. If we can figure out what it is, we can expose him." "Jack, these guys play for keeps. You sure you want to go down this road?" I looked at the photo of Elena kissing Victor's neck, at the envelope full of cash, at my daughter's face in the family portrait on my mantle. "I'm already on this road, Leo. The only question is whether I'm going alone." "When do we start?" Leo and I spent the next week conducting surveillance on Victor's operation. We identified 3 key locations: the car dealership, Red Square nightclub, and a warehouse in Southie that seemed to have a lot of late-night activity. "Whatever he's moving, it's happening at night," Leo observed as we watched trucks come and go from the warehouse. "And he's got serious security. Elena's involved somehow. That money he gave her wasn't a gift." "You think she's laundering for him?" "I think she's doing whatever he asks her to do." Our breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Patterson called me with gossip that turned out to be intelligence gold. "Jack, dear, I hope you don't mind me calling, but I overheard something interesting. Elena was on the phone in her backyard yesterday. She must not have realized how sound carries. She was talking about moving some children, something about paperwork and documents. My blood ran cold. Children? Yes. She seemed very concerned about keeping them quiet during transport. And she mentioned your name, Jack. She said you were getting too close to something." I thanked Mrs. Patterson and immediately called Danny. "I need you to check something for me. Missing children reports over the last 6 months. Specifically, kids who might have been trafficked." "Jesus, Jack. What are you mixed up in?" "My wife's boyfriend is moving kids, Danny. Elena's helping him. I'll see what I can find." While Danny worked his sources, Leo and I decided to get closer to the warehouse operation. We parked in an abandoned lot with a clear view of the loading dock and settled in for a long night. Around midnight, a van pulled up. 3 men got out, including Victor. They opened the back doors, and I saw them helping several young people out of the vehicle. Even from a distance, it was clear these weren't willing passengers. "Call the cops," Leo whispered. "With what evidence? By the time they get here, everyone will be gone." "So what do? We get proof." I grabbed my camera and started moving closer, using parked trucks for cover. Through the telephoto lens, I could see Victor directing the operation while his men herded the kids into the warehouse. They looked scared, disoriented, and very young. I was getting good shots when one of the guards spotted me. "Hey, you!" I ran. The guard chased me through the maze of parked vehicles, shouting in Russian. I could hear more voices joining the pursuit. My shoulder, still weak from the old bullet wound, was screaming in protest, but adrenaline kept me moving. I made it to Leo's car, and we peeled out just as Victor's men reached the parking lot entrance. "Did you get the pictures?" Leo asked. "Yeah, and they're going to put Victor away for a very long time." But first, I had to deal with Elena. The next morning, I went to her law office. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I walked past her into Elena's private office and closed the door. Elena looked up from her computer, annoyed. "Jack, you can't just... You're helping him."
I was drunk. I didn't know what I was doing.
Drunk? I have everything on video.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Traffic children. The color drained from her face. "What are you talking about? I saw the warehouse operation last night. Kids being moved against their will, and you're providing legal cover. You're insane." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos. "This is your boyfriend directing a human trafficking operation. And this," I showed her another photo, "is you taking money from him at the club." Elena stared at the images, her lawyer's mind clearly calculating the implications. "Those children are refugees," she said finally. "Victor helps them find new homes. In the middle of the night, without proper documentation? Elena, these are trafficking victims. You don't understand the complexities. I understand that you're helping a criminal exploit children, and you're using our daughter as cover for your activities." Elena stood up, her composure cracking. "Victor loves me. He's building something important, something that helps people escape poverty and violence. He's a predator, Elena, and he's turned you into one too. Get out of my office, not until you agree to cooperate with the authorities." I said get out. She reached for her phone, probably to call security, but I was already leaving. I'd gotten what I came for, confirmation that Elena knew exactly what Victor was doing and had chosen to be part of it. That afternoon, Danny called with disturbing news. "Jack, I found connections between your Victor and at least 12 missing children cases over the past year. These kids disappeared from foster care, homeless shelters, and immigrant communities. The kind of kids nobody looks for too hard. Can we build a case? Maybe. But we need more evidence, and we need to move fast. Word is that Victor's planning to relocate his operation. How much time do we have? Days, maybe a week. I made a decision that would change everything. Danny, I'm going to give you evidence of an active trafficking operation. But I need you to promise me something." "What?" "When this goes down, Elena gets a chance to cooperate. She's in deep, but she's still Katie's mother. Jack, if she's involved in trafficking children, she's my wife, Danny. Whatever she's done, she's still my wife." That night, I called Elena. "I'm giving you one last chance," I told her. "Walk away from Victor. Cooperate with the authorities. Think about Katie. Victor would never hurt me or Katie. Victor hurts children for money, Elena. What makes you think you're special?" "Because I love him, and he loves me. He's using you, the way you used me. At least Victor appreciates what I bring to the relationship. What you bring is legal expertise to help him exploit kids. You're pathetic, Jack. Victor is twice the man you'll ever be." "Then you've made your choice." I hung up and called Danny. "It's time to move." Lopishia. The federal raid on Victor's operation was set for the following Thursday. Danny had connected me with Agent Sarah Chen from the FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force, and my evidence had been enough to secure warrants for the warehouse, the club, and Victor's car dealership. "We need you to testify," Agent Chen told me during our final briefing. "Your surveillance photos are crucial evidence. What about my wife? If she cooperates, we can work something out. If she doesn't," Agent Chen shrugged. "Trafficking conspiracy carries a 20-year minimum." I spent the days leading up to the raid trying to reach Katie. Elena had blocked my number and changed their home phone. My daughter was completely cut off from me, probably being told that I was the villain in this story. On Wednesday night, Victor made his move. I was leaving Leo's gym when two men approached me in the parking lot. They weren't trying to be subtle. This was meant as intimidation. "Mr. Sullivan," the taller one said in accented English, "Mr. Kozlov would like to speak with you. Tell Mr. Kozlov he can make an appointment like everyone else. This is not a request. I looked around the parking lot. Leo was still inside, and there were no witnesses. These guys were professionals, and they had the advantage of numbers. What does Victor want? To make you an offer. Against my better judgment, I got in their car. They drove me to Red Square, which was closed for a private party. Victor was waiting in the same corner booth where I'd photographed him with Elena. He looked relaxed, confident, like a man who'd never lost a negotiation. "Jack Sullivan," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Elena has told me so much about you. I bet she has. She says you are stubborn, proud, that you cannot accept when you have lost. What do you want, Victor?" "I want you to disappear." He slid an envelope across the table. $50,000, cash, enough to start over somewhere far from Boston. "And in return, you stop interfering with my business. You withdraw your divorce opposition. You let Elena and Katie build a new life with a human trafficker." Victor's expression hardened. "I provide opportunities for people who have none. I reunite families. I create hope where there was only despair. You exploit children. I save them from lives of poverty and abuse by selling them to the highest bidder." Victor leaned back in his chair. "You have a very limited understanding of how the world works, Jack. There are people who consume and people who provide. I provide. What you provide is misery. What I provide is what people want. If there were no demand, there would be no supply. And Elena? What does she provide? Legal expertise, connections, and something you clearly could not, appreciation for what I am building." I stared at the envelope full of money. $50,000 would solve most of my immediate problems. I could start over somewhere else, maybe rebuild my life. "What happens if I don't take your offer?" Victor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then you become a problem that needs to be solved." "Is that a threat?" "It is a fact. I have invested too much in this city to let one bitter ex-husband destroy what I have built." I picked up the envelope and stood up. "Thanks for the offer, Victor. But I've got a better idea." "Which is?" "Tomorrow morning, you're going to be arrested by federal agents. Your operation is going to be shut down. And Elena is going to have to choose between 20 years in prison or testifying against you." Victor's composure finally cracked. "You have no idea what you are doing. I'm doing my job. I'm protecting children from predators like you. Elena will never testify against me. We'll see." I dropped the envelope on the table and walked toward the exit. Victor's men moved to block my path, but he waved them off. "You are making a mistake, Jack. A very expensive mistake. The only mistake I made was not stopping you sooner." I walked out of Red Square knowing I'd probably signed my own death warrant. But for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. The raids began at dawn. I watched from across the street as federal agents swarmed Victor's car dealership. Similar operations were happening simultaneously at the warehouse and the club. Agent Chen had coordinated everything perfectly. Victor was arrested in his office, still wearing the expensive suit from our meeting the night before. He didn't resist, didn't show any emotion. He just looked directly at the news cameras and smiled. Elena was arrested at her law office 2 hours later. The local news was calling it the biggest human trafficking bust in Boston's history. 17 victims were rescued, including several children who had been missing for months. Victor's network had been operating for over 3 years, generating millions in illegal profits. I was watching the coverage when Katie called. "Dad, what's happening? Mom got arrested at work and nobody will tell me anything." "Where are you now?" "At school. The guidance counselor is here, and there are reporters outside." "I'm coming to get you." "Dad, did Mom really do something bad?" I closed my eyes. "We'll talk about it when I see you, okay? I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart, but you're going to be okay, I promise." When I arrived at Katie's school, the media circus was in full swing. Reporters were shoving microphones at anyone who would talk, trying to get quotes about the trafficking lawyer and her criminal boyfriend. I found Katie in the guidance counselor's office, looking small and lost. "Hey, kiddo," I said, pulling her into a hug. "Dad, is it true? Was Mom helping bad people hurt children?" I looked at the guidance counselor, who nodded and stepped outside to give us privacy. "Your mother got involved with someone who was doing terrible things," I said carefully. "She made some bad choices, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Are you going to say I told you so?" "No, Katie. I'm just going to take care of you. What's going to happen to Mom? I don't know yet, but whatever happens, you and I are going to be okay." Katie started crying, and I held her while she sobbed. Outside, I could hear reporters still shouting questions. still trying to turn our family's destruction into entertainment. Elena's bail hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. I sat in the back of the courtroom, watching my wife of 15 years stand before a federal judge in an orange jumpsuit. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the institutional clothing and the weight of the charges against her. Conspiracy to commit human trafficking, money laundering, obstruction of justice. The prosecutor was asking for no bail, arguing that Elena was a flight risk with access to offshore accounts. Svetlana, Elena's best friend and lawyer, was doing her best to argue for reasonable bail, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records showed regular deposits from Victor's accounts. Phone records documented hundreds of calls between them, and my surveillance photos proved she was an active participant in his operations. The judge denied bail. As Elena was led away, she looked back and saw me in the gallery. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years: fear. Not anger, not contempt, but genuine fear about what was going to happen to her. After the hearing, Agent Chen approached me in the hallway. "Your wife's attorney wants to discuss a cooperation agreement," she said. "What kind of cooperation?" "Full testimony against Victor and his network. Names, dates, financial records, everything she knows." "What would she get in return?" "Reduced charges, probably 5 to 7 years instead of 20. She'd be eligible for parole in 3. I thought about Katie, who is living with me now in a temporary apartment. She was seeing a therapist twice a week, trying to process the fact that both her parents had been lying to her about fundamental aspects of their lives. What does Elena say? She wants to talk to you first. I met Elena in the federal detention center the next day. She was wearing the same orange jumpsuit, but she'd managed to maintain some of her composure. She looked like a lawyer again, not a scared defendant. "Jack," she said when I sat down across from her, "thank you for coming. Katie misses you. How is she handling all this?" "About as well as you'd expect. Her mother is in federal prison, and her father is the guy who put her there." Elena flinched. "I never wanted her to get hurt. But you knew she would. You knew that getting involved with Victor would eventually destroy our family. I thought I could control it. I thought I could take what I needed from him and keep the rest separate." "What did you need from him, Elena?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Respect, appreciation, the feeling that I mattered to someone." "You mattered to me." "No, Jack, I was useful to you. I paid the bills while you played at being a private investigator. I managed the household while you nursed your wounded pride about leaving the police force. But I never felt like you saw me as anything more than a supporting character in your story." The words stung because there was truth in them. "So you decided to become the leading lady in Victor's story instead." "Victor made me feel powerful, important, like I was building something that mattered. You were building a criminal enterprise that exploited children. I told myself I was just handling the legal aspects. Immigration paperwork, business licenses, financial structures. I didn't want to know about the rest, but you did know." Elena nodded, tears finally starting to fall. "I knew, and I chose to ignore it because Victor made me feel alive again. Agent Chen says you can get a reduced sentence if you cooperate. What do you think I should do?" "I think you should tell the truth, all of it. Help them shut down Victor's network completely, even if it means admitting that I knowingly participated in trafficking. Especially then, Katie needs to see that you're capable of doing the right thing, even when it costs you." Elena wiped her eyes. "Will you bring her to see me? If she wants to come. And Jack, will you be able to forgive me? Not for us, but for Katie's sake." I looked at my wife, my ex-wife, and tried to find some remnant of the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. She was still there, buried under layers of ambition and resentment and bad choices. "I'll try," I said. Elena's cooperation proved to be the key that unlocked Victor's entire network. Over the following weeks, federal agents arrested dozens of associates, seized millions in assets, and rescued 43 trafficking victims. Victor himself was ultimately convicted on 17 counts of human trafficking, money laundering, and racketeering. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Elena received 7 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to conspiracy charges. She would be eligible for parole in 5 years with good behavior. The trial made national news, with Elena portrayed as both a victim of manipulation and a willing participant in horrific crimes. The media couldn't decide whether to sympathize with her or condemn her, so they did both. Katie and I moved to a small apartment in Cambridge, closer to her school and farther from the reporters who occasionally still showed up looking for follow-up stories. She was doing better in therapy, slowly learning to separate her love for her mother from her disgust at her mother's actions. Do you hate her? Katie asked me one evening as we were making dinner together. No, I said honestly. I hate what she did, but I don't hate her. Do you think she really loved Victor? I think she loved the way he made her feel, but I don't think she understood who he really was until it was too late. Are you going to visit her in prison? If you want me to, I will. Katie thought about that for a while. Maybe someday, but not yet. That's okay. You don't have to decide anything right now. 6 months after Elena's sentencing, I received an unexpected phone call from Agent Chen. Jack, I wanted to let you know that we've identified and rescued 8 more trafficking victims based on information from Elena's testimony. These were kids who had been missing for over a year. That's good news. It is. And Jack, what you did, the investigation, the surveillance, the evidence you gathered, it made all the difference. Without your work, Victor would still be operating, and those kids would still be missing. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment thinking about the cost of justice. Elena was in prison, our marriage was over, and Katie was growing up with the knowledge that her mother had helped hurt children. But 43 victims had been rescued. A criminal network had been destroyed, and somewhere, 8 families had gotten their children back. It wasn't